Hello everyone! In today's video, I'm going to be doing a little work on the 1983 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 that I built in a previous video. If you haven't yet seen the full build video for this car, I recommend you check it out. I'll be sure to post a link in the description and I'll have a card on screen right now. It's one of the more popular builds and videos that I've uploaded, and this car is one of my favorite vehicles in this scale to drive, so I recently decided to put together a little update and driving video. I really like the body, paint colors, and full depth interior on this car, along with this being one of the heaviest cars in the scale that I have, which makes it unique to drive. As I talked about in the build video, there are a couple cosmetic things that I wasn't as pleased with, those being the paint job and the ugly front lead weights sitting too low. The paint is a little rough, as you can probably tell, but as I like to say, whether you spend hours and hours making your paint show quality perfect, or just give it a half-baked Mako paint job, when you inevitably slide it against a wall for 8 feet, it all chips and scratches about the same. Although I like to do the best I can with paint on all my builds, none of my cars are shelf queens, and they will all inevitably collide with other cars, walls, and stuff I forget to pick up off the floor. Because of this, I find it hard to justify spending large amounts of time painting and buying top-of-the-line model paints. Plus, as some of you have pointed out, the orange peely paint kinda works on this car, being that it's an almost 40-year-old Camaro. Some orange peel and scratches don't look as out of place as it would on something like a 2020 Lamborghini Aventador. I've also had to do some touch-up with the Sharpie marker. I was thrilled to see that Sharpies not only come in the standard black to match the body, but also gold to match the lower trim. The lead weights on the front, however, have got to go, or more specifically, they need to be relocated. They just look ugly sticking out from the bottom of the car, especially as the little shelf I made for them has been gradually bending down. The idea was to have a nice place to mount the weights to the chassis, but at this point, I'd rather glue them to the underside of the body so the car looks better, and I'll still have the weight in front. I also thought it would be cool to make a new set of wheels for this car. I really like the wheels that are on the car currently, especially with them being painted to match the lower trim, but I wanted to design a new set. I spent some time deciding what wheel design I wanted to make for the car, initially planning on making some aftermarket style wheel as I usually do with most projects. However, I decided to change things up and make a factory style 5-spoke wheel, as I really like the look of the wheels offered on these cars from the factory. I especially like the later 5-spoke wheels that came on some IROCs, though I'll be going with this earlier design. I'll be showing all of that later in the video. But before diving in, I thought I'd drive a few laps around the track. As I said, this car is a lot of fun to drive, and there really isn't anything I want to change as far as the performance. The car is relatively heavy, and it can be felt when driving. It's cool how dynamic the driving experience can be with such a small car, and although I've built many cars using FFR SC1 chassis, using different motors, springs, ride heights, and being different weights makes each car unique. Just like with scale RC crawling, the idea isn't purely to build the fastest, most capable car possible with no regard to the appearance or realism, but instead build a car that more closely represents the appearance, suspension design, and performance of a full-size car. The suspension is pretty stiff, especially in the front, because I've dropped the suspension about as low as I can without it being bottomed out. The full-depth interior sitting on the chassis pushes the body relatively high up, so I needed to drop the suspension lower so the ride height doesn't look too high in relation to the body. I could probably spend hours experimenting with different springs and spring lengths, along with coming up with a way to drop the body some if I really wanted to get the suspension perfect. However, I'm satisfied with how it's at right now. I like to make some adjustments to the transmitter to limit the steering speed and throttle response, again to make the car a little more like the real thing. Plus it adds a little more of a challenge, almost a combination of a racing video game and a typical on-road RC car. I get quite a few people asking what transmitter and settings I like to use with these cars. It all varies from one car to another, but I've been thinking about making a quick video going over the transmitter I use and showing how different settings can change how the car functions. If this is something you'd be interested in, please leave a comment below. I've posted some details before, but if there's enough interest, I'd be happy to put together a video on the topic. Back on the bench, I decided to first work on removing and relocating the lead weights. Here you can see more clearly how it's gradually bent down, making it even more visible, and it looks like it could easily catch on things as it drives. No brain surgery levels of precision is needed to remove it. I just made sure not to mess anything up in the process of cutting it off. I think removing the weights from the mount ended up being more of a pain than removing the mount from the chassis, but I got them separated without any issues. A huge improvement in my opinion. Now I needed to decide exactly where I wanted to place the weights. I found a spot for each of them and used super glue to secure them to the body. They're also a little higher up now, which may give the car some more body roll. So with the weights repositioned, I moved on to designing the wheels. As always, I made sure to collect some reference material, and I had the wheels included with the model kit that I could use as reference as well. I got a few measurements from the model kit's wheels before jumping into Autodesk Fusion 360, which is the software I use to design the wheels. I believe on the full-size cars they are 15 by 7 inches, so I kept that in mind when figuring out the dimensions my wheels will be. Though I did make the ones that I'm designing a little wider relative to the car than what the full-size wheels would be. I'm not sure if it's because I designed these late at night, but these wheels ended up being more difficult to design than what I initially thought. This wasn't the best or fastest workflow, but I did get the result that I wanted. I had some great reference material which helped a lot, and I'm very pleased with the finished result, which I think looks pretty accurate. I also designed a tire that will fit, which I'll later be printing using PLA. I'll be posting the design onto Patreon, so if you'd like to print yourself a set, joining the maker tier will get you access to them. After the design was complete, I printed each wheel using an SLA 3D printer. I was very pleased with how each wheel looked, and eager to start painting. I used Model Master's gold, silver, and gloss black to paint the wheels. I started by applying silver using an airbrush. Next I sprayed gold over top, and then wiped away the gold paint on the raised sections so the wheels would end up looking like this. Unfortunately, this technique didn't work out due to the silver rubbing off as well. I'm sure this technique would work better if the silver had longer to dry, or I applied a clear coat on top of the silver. But I was a bit impatient and decided to just paint the whole wheel gold and hand paint the raised sections silver. To make painting the outer edge easier, I mounted the wheel to the chassis. I then increased the throttle trim until the wheels started spinning and painted them like this. I carefully used a toothpick or a small brush to paint the raised silver sections on other parts of the wheel. After that, I painted the center section gloss black. The finished result turned out great. I got a pack of compatible size silicone tires to put on. After that, I mounted each wheel to the chassis. I used a 4x1 wheel hex mount with each wheel to space them out a little further, since these wheels have more back spacing. I also used this as an opportunity to remove any dust and hair that gets wrapped around the axles. The wheels look awesome on the car. I really couldn't be happier with the result. Ideally, I'd prefer a little less camber angle in the front, with these factory-style wheels installed. However, it would be a lot of work to change the angle. Other than that, I'm very happy with the appearance. Along with the nice wheels and tires I have on the car now, I decided to print a set on an FDM printer using PLA plastic for both the wheel and tire. Obviously, these wheels don't look quite as good as the ones printed earlier, however they still turned out pretty nice. I removed the supports and cleaned them up a bit. After that, I applied several thick coats of primer, which helped to smooth the surface. I'm not going to be painting them with all the details like I did with the previous set, so I just brushed on some flat black paint. Simple, but they still look pretty cool. I printed each tire in 2 pieces that I'll glue together. This makes them easier to print. I used super glue to secure each half. I ended up not doing a great job of lining up the first tire I made, so I did some sanding to try to smooth out the difference between the 2 halves. I only made 2 tires for now, which I put on the rear. These hard plastic tires are going to provide far less grip than the silicone ones, allowing for lots of oversteer. I drove the car in an area with concrete and had some fun doing donuts and sliding the back around. I adjusted some settings on the transmitter to get some more wheel speed, which made it easy to lose traction in the rear. An all-around really fun couple of evenings spent messing around with the Camaro. I'm really liking how it looks, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I think the last thing I need to do is cover up the red light on the ESC, which you can see in a lot of the shots. As I said previously, the STL files for the wheels are posted on Patreon for anyone who's interested. The link is in the description below. And that's all for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.